It's another Friday night, and this is your WWE Smackdown review for Friday, July 14, 2023. I am the Solomonster, and thank you here on a summer Friday for joining me for what was a pretty halfway decent episode of Smackdown. Jey Uso was the shining star of the night. Jey Uso had the ring all to himself tonight for a promo to address Roman Reigns after the events of last week, when his brother Jimmy was put in the hospital by the Bloodline. And so he was confronted by Paul Heyman and Solo Sikoa. There was no Roman Reigns. There was no Jimmy Uso on the show tonight. But Jey Uso had the ring to himself. He commanded the ring and really came across like a legitimate star, all by himself, even just standing there without his brother. Jey Uso, he took command tonight, and it felt like, Jey Uso is the guy who should be in that SummerSlam main event against Roman Reigns this year. And the crowd was hot for it. The crowd is always hot for the Bloodline stuff. But we also had our first of two Fatal 4-Way matches, what they are calling the U.S. title Invitational. Two Fatal 4-Way matches, the first one tonight, the next one coming up on SmackDown next Friday, with the winners of these two matches going on in 2 weeks to determine a number one contender for the United States Championship. Now, they have not said that this title match will be taking place at SummerSlam. In fact, there's a very good possibility the U.S. title will not be defended at SummerSlam this year, because looking at the possible card, they already have about 8 or 9 matches. I can't imagine them adding any more than that. And none of those 8 or 9, I forgot exactly how many it were, or how many there were, include a U.S. title match. So this may end up happening on SmackDown next month at some point. But we do have one of the participants in the finals. We know who it is. I'm not going to tell you just yet. If you saw the show, you already know who it is. But if you didn't, we will talk later on about who won the Fatal 4-Way tonight, who I think is going to win, who I think should win the Fatal 4-Way next week. This is headed in the direction I was hoping it would be headed in, but it could be derailed. I could be wrong. They could do the wrong thing next week. Let's hope they don't. LA Knight was back on the show. It was brief. But he was back on the show tonight, thank God. And also, Bobby Lashley was back. I've gotten a lot of questions from people asking me, where has Lashley been? Is he hurt? What's going on with Bobby? Bobby was back on the show tonight. Not in the ring, but he was on the show. And it was the latest tease. Now, we had gotten some little teases months ago for a possible Hurt Business reunion, and then nothing ever came of it, and it looked like the Hurt Business was dead and buried once and for all. But there is life. There is life to it. There is a possibility that we could see a new Hurt Business possibly in the near future, and we'll talk about that and everything else. Like I said, this is your SmackDown review here for July 14th. And do me a favor, if you would, like and subscribe here to the channel. 350 likes, I set a modest goal for tonight. We should be able to hit that. If not, then boy, is it a slow night. But 350, if we can hit that, we will be the booker later on. So please do hit the like button. It does help out these videos when you do so. Super chats are open. And I want to thank, by the way, Zizu. Gifted a bunch of channel memberships a few minutes ago. Channel memberships are open as well, so feel free to become a member or gift to other people if you would like to do so. Other thing I want to mention here, for those who may have missed it the other day, is the latest installment of Sound Off Gamer is up. It is my first impressions of AEW Fight Forever. So if you want to know what my thoughts are on this new game, you want to see me begin the road to the elite, video is up right now, almost an hour long on the channel. I think it's got about 10,000 views already. That's the biggest sound-off gamer I've done in a very long time. So you people seem to be enjoying it. Go ahead and check that out if you have not already done so. But right now, that's AEW. Let's leave AEW on the side. Right now, we'll talk about SmackDown. SmackDown tonight kicked off with a shot of Jey Uso backstage. He was walking the halls of the building. Michael Cole told us on commentary that he was on the warpath tonight after what Roman Reigns did to him and his brother on SmackDown last week in that tribal court segment. So we left Jey to cut back live to the arena where Bianca Belair came out. Bianca Belair was in the main event tonight on this show, challenging for the WWE Women's Championship against Asuka. So she came out for a promo here to kick things off, and she talked about all of the hoops that she had to go through to get to this point and to get this match. Patience comes to those, well, all good things, I guess, come to those who wait, is basically what she was saying. She said tonight it would be a KOD and the 1-2-3, which sounds like a new t-shirt idea. I fully expect that to be a new t-shirt within the next few weeks. She was interrupted by Charlotte Flair, because of course she was, and Charlotte Flair made her way down to the ring. She predicted that Bianca would win tonight and would walk out as the WWE Women's Champion. She wanted to put an end to any confusion about who is next in line. And Bianca told her that the line begins and ends with her. Charlotte smiled and said she wouldn't have that any other way. Charlotte laid out a challenge to her if she wins the title, and Bianca said that she wasn't going to jinx herself. But she pitched the match for SummerSlam. Charlotte said that if she wins, it's on. With that, they shook hands. Asuka, at the very end of this, was shown holding her title, watching on a screen in the back. And all I could help but think when this segment was over was how Asuka is the champion and she feels like a complete afterthought in this entire thing. Asuka is the champion, and this woman felt like an afterthought when this match was over. And maybe that's by design. Maybe that's by design, because at the end of all of this, and we know where this is headed, right? We know this is headed to a triple threat at SummerSlam. It's going to be Asuka, it's going to be Charlotte Flair, and it's going to be Bianca Belair. And maybe this is all being done by design, because at the end of all this, Charlotte and Bianca are going to cancel each other out, and Asuka is going to beat them both and retain the championship until she gets cashed in on, and maybe Io Sky finally cashes in her Money in the Bank at SummerSlam on Asuka. So that, I could definitely see that happening, because we still don't know exactly when Io is going to cash in. We had another failed cash-in attempt by Io Sky in the show tonight. She's only had the briefcase, I think, for a couple of weeks. She's already had, at least two or three, I think two failed cash-ins, I believe. So we still have her out there as the wild card in all this. Hey, Cody in the chat just gifted a channel membership to our boy Mordecai McNasty. What's going on, Mordecai? Hey, Cody, thank you, man. Thank you, Cody Moore. Sheamus, Ridge Holland. They were in action tonight, taking on Pretty Deadly, who now have a giant disco ball that drops down in the ring as they make their entrance while their ABBA knockoff theme plays. Sheamus got a hot tag to Ridge, who took out Pretty and Deadly. Wilson and Prince went outside. Sheamus came off the top onto both of them, tackled them to the floor. Back inside, Elton Prince removed one of the corner turnbuckle pads, and Ridge Holland ended up being run throat first into the steel, which played off the recent throat issues that he's had. He's, taken at least one Samoan spike recently from Solo Sikoa. Prince then landed a top rope leg drop on Ridge and got the pin. Standard stuff from these two teams, but I think they've done a good job so far. They've done a good job of establishing Pretty Deadly as, the pest heel duo. They've already picked up a few wins since their debut. Yeah, I grew to become a fan of their work in NXT. I thought they did well in NXT, former tag team champions down there. I could see them being tag team champions in the not-too-distant future on the main roster. Not going to happen anytime soon, as long as they still have the titles unified, which really they should. I don't see Owens and Zayn entering into a program with them in the near future, but I think they've assimilated well so far, into the main roster. They've done well. They haven't been called up for very long. It's only been, a couple of months? But I think they're doing well so far. Now, backstage, Grayson Waller was interviewed by Kathy Kelly, and he recalled Edge last week telling him when their match was over that you swam. Because Edge last week on the Grayson Waller Effect was talking about how, tonight, you and me in the ring here at Madison Square Garden, it's sink or swim time for Grayson Waller, and even though Waller lost, he looked impressive in the match, and so Edge got on the microphone and said, you swam. That was his way of putting him over. That was his way of endorsing him. Like, okay, kid, you belong. You showed me something. So he reminded everybody of that here this week. And then he said even The Rock loves him because the two of them had a back and forth on social media. So he brought up, of course they were going to mention it, right? So he mentioned the interaction he's had with The Rock. He said later tonight he would be in the ring with 3 of SmackDown's best in the U.S. title Invitational and would have his hand raised in victory. And then he closed his interview by stealing The Rock's catchphrase and saying, if you smell what he's cooking. Now, it could be nothing. Let me just preface this by saying it could be nothing. It probably is nothing. But, the reason I think this could potentially lead to a Rock appearance, which would be funny because for all the talk about is Rock going to come back and do something with the Bloodline? Is he going to wrestle Roman Reigns? All this stuff. It would be kind of funny if The Rock did come back finally, but it was for a segment with Grayson Waller. But let me tell you why I think there's a real shot. There's a real chance of this happening, that they could do something on TV with them, maybe even at SummerSlam. The Writers Guild strike. For those who haven't been paying attention, the Hollywood writers, they have been on strike since the beginning of May. And this week, the actors joined them. So it's a full-on, full-blown Hollywood strike. The first time in decades that this has happened. And it's probably, unfortunately, going to go on for a very long time, which actually puts WWE and AEW in prime position, I think, with the television network. So actually, for them, for wrestling, this could not be happening at a better time. Because really, you have both companies. WWE and AEW are currently in a position where they are either actively negotiating their next media rights contract, or in the case of AEW, very soon, because the belief is that Warner Brothers Discovery probably just took the option year, and they may not be negotiating a new deal for many more months yet, but they will be soon, if they aren't already. And the only thing that could, come out of this whole thing for wrestling is just a total positive, because wrestling is 52 weeks a year. They're non-union. They're not going on strike. Their writers are not going on strike. AEW doesn't even have writers. The talent's not going on strike. They're going to show up every single week. I mean, my God, wrestling was the only form of entertainment that continued on live every week during a fucking pandemic. So believe me, this strike is not going to stop them. Well, that's very appealing to these television networks. So wrestling is actually in a great position, but I digress. As far as The Rock is concerned, The Rock is a Hollywood star, right? One of the biggest stars in Hollywood. And I would imagine that with this ongoing strike, his schedule just opened up a little bit. He's probably going to have a lot of free time on his hands. So if schedule was the issue for The Rock, all of a sudden it may not be. You got a big stadium show coming up, right? Next month in a few weeks, SummerSlam. Going to have 45,000 people there, 50,000 people. Grayson Waller going on television now, talking about The Rock. There could be something there. There could be a better chance of getting him to do something, even if it's just a quick segment, and he gives him the rock bottom and the people's elbow. I think there's a much better chance of that happening now than probably at any point during the lead up to WrestleMania this year, because people thought Rock maybe would be involved, and of course he wasn't. With Grayson Waller, it's very clear to me, and I said this last week, that they're very high on him. And you look in the span of a week, he worked with John Cena in a segment at Money in the Bank, and then he wrestled Edge, right? A Hall of Famer at Madison Square Garden in his very first match. It's not a stretch to think that, hey, you know what? We want him to work with The Rock. Even if he ends up getting his ass kicked, him being in the ring face-to-face in a segment with The Rock, who hasn't been on WWE television in so long, would be a big deal for Grayson Waller. So do not discount the possibility that we may see something involving the two of them at SummerSlam. I think there's a better than decent chance. So they recap the Bloodline tribal court angle from last week. And I should mention this here because it actually is very impressive. The Bloodline segment that opened the show last week, the one that went over 35 minutes, peaked in the ratings with over 3 million viewers. 3 million. That is huge for WWE. And in the 18 to 49 demo, which is the key demo that everybody is always talking about, and obviously that's the one that's most important to advertisers. That's why it's called the key demo. This actually blew my mind. I didn't realize that this had set the all-time record. It set the all-time record viewership in that key demo ever for pro wrestling. As long as pro wrestling has been on television, going back decades and decades, that segment last week on Fox, in the demo alone, did almost 1 million viewers. It made wrestling the #1 program on television, not just cable television, that's happened plenty of times, but on network television. So again, if you don't think this Bloodline stuff, isn't white hot right now, then you haven't been paying attention. This angle is white hot. You can tell this is why WWE has kept it going. And Triple H has kept it going as long as he has, because they know they've got gold in this thing. And they're gonna drag this out as long as they feel like they possibly can. Michael Cole gave us a medical update after the video aired, after the recap from last week. Gave us a medical update on Jey Uso, who was not on the show tonight. He was written off television last week. He said Jimmy suffered ruptured rib cartilage and that he would be out of action for the foreseeable future. Well, at least it wasn't anal bleeding. I'd rather have ruptured rib cartilage, which actually sounds incredibly painful, but I would rather have that than anal bleeding, so best wishes to Jey Uso. We don't see Jimmy again at least until SummerSlam. SummerSlam, he could make an appearance, a surprise, cameo on the show, but we're not going to see him before then. Now, backstage, Charlotte Flair was shown leaving the arena. She was rolling her luggage behind her when all of a sudden she ran into Adam Pearce, who wanted to know where she was going. What is she doing? She told Pearce that she's leaving the arena because she feels good about how the match later is going to go between Asuka and Bianca. So she disappeared, and just as Charlotte disappeared out of frame, Bayley and Io Sky showed up. Io Sky had her Money in the Bank briefcase. She was showing it off. And Bayley said that Charlotte is not the only one who feels good. She said this as Io was brandishing her Money in the Bank briefcase. And then they left. So when they left, all of a sudden Charlotte Flair reappears. Oh boy. And look who else appeared. Brie Bella appeared. Brie Bella heard me talking about this women's segment here on TV and did not want to be left out. Hey, 0 Point, thank you for the $25. Brie mode activated. So Charlotte reappeared after hearing what Bayley just said, and she told Adam Pearce, on second thought, I'm going to stick around for the main event. So you knew we were getting all kinds of fuckery at the end of the show today. Then we had Bayley, the aforementioned Bayley, in action one-on-one against Zelina Vega of the LWO. One of the many reasons I'm sure why WWE, and this is another record, WWE, look, to their credit, whatever you may think of creative beyond the Bloodline stuff and the product overall, they've never been hotter. They've never made more money than they're making right now. They just set merch records recently. Their merchandise sales, their merchandise revenue is higher than it's been at any point in the history of this company, including the Hulkamania era and the Austin era, the Attitude era. Now, I would add a little caveat to that, which is the fact that, if you go try to buy a t-shirt off WWE Shop, I don't know what they are today. The last time I bought a t-shirt off WWE Shop was, I don't know, maybe a couple of years ago. I don't remember exactly when. T-shirts now on that website, I think, are like $35. $40, probably with shipping, it's like $40 for a fucking t-shirt. So yeah, I would expect them to be making more money. And also keep in mind, probably those replica belts. I mean, you see 2 of them over my shoulder right now. Right? There's so many more replica belts, and they have like deluxe editions. These belts are at least $500 a piece if you want a halfway decent one. there's so much more in the way of merch, and they're charging so much more for it. Now they're working with Fanatics. That company Fanatics, I guess, is handling all their merch. But, just keep that and put a little star next to it because, yeah, I mean, Austin 316 shirt, when I bought that shirt years ago, it was $20. When WCW was selling NWO merch, I remember the commercials on TV. Get your NWO shirt, $20. T-shirts are not $20 on WWE shops. So, not a surprise to hear that they're making more money off their merch now than ever before. But, again, just another sign right now that their business is booming. I mentioned this because... Why did I mention this? I mentioned Zelina Vega. The LWO has been a hot merch seller for this company. Now, you would never know that Zelina Vega was part of this hot faction because she was booked here to lose in a 2-minute match, but LWO merch has sold very well for them. So Bayley came out to the ring with Io, and Bayley was carrying in her hand a lock of Shotzi's hair that she cut off last week. This was not much of a match. Bayley grabbed Zelina's chancla, and she tried to hit her with it, but she ate a code breaker instead. Zelina then retrieved the flip-flop, and she smacked Bayley with it multiple times. There was a distraction near the ropes from Io, and Bayley ended up landing a rose plant, and she pinned Zelina to win the match. Now, when the match was over, Shotzi was shown on the screen, and in her hand she had an electric razor. And she said that she wanted to show Bayley how chaotic she really is. She then buzzed off all of her hair. And it wasn't all gone by the end of the segment, but basically she shaved her own head here in this segment. She pulled a Serena Deeb from the Straight Edge Society days. And she shaved her own head, and she kept screaming over and over again that, she's a little weird. She basically was a crazy woman. She was acting all crazy here in this segment. And Bayley and Io couldn't believe what they were seeing. Now, for those wondering what the deal is with this, Shotzi's sister, Shawn, for those who don't know, is fighting a rare type of liver cancer that she was diagnosed with. I believe she was diagnosed last year. There is a GoFundMe page set up. I was on there a little while ago just reading through some of the information. From what I can ascertain, I think she had surgery, might have been late last year around the holidays, and she's currently undergoing chemotherapy. So that is why Shotzi shaved her head. She shaved her head basically, to stand in solidarity with her sister, which is very cool to see, but also very terrible, to hear about her sister. Look, cancer is a scary enough thing as it is. Trust me. But when you have stage 3B cancer, that's not good. And so it looks like she's going through a pretty tough time right now. But still very cool to see Shotzi, standing in solidarity with her sister, which, not at all surprising. I don't have the link available to me, but if you want to, again, check out the GoFundMe page. I'm sure it's not hard to find. It's been up for a while. It looks like it's been up for over a year, but you can read up a little bit more about what she's going through on there. So that's why we saw what we saw. They decided to incorporate it into the show, which, if she was going to do this, makes sense, right? Instead of having her just randomly show up one week with no hair, now they're going to at least try to incorporate it into her character, and we'll see where it goes from here. So then Jey Uso here, as we approach the 9 o'clock hour, Jey Uso was out to the ring to address the audience and his family. Jey Uso, like Eddie Kingston, he was out there to address his enemies and also finally bring some life to this show, because honestly, up to this point, this show was pretty bad. So finally, we had a segment worth paying attention to. Jey said that growing up, he and Jimmy were inseparable. Of course they were. They were twins. They were inseparable. They did everything together. The crowd started giving him the what treatment. Because the way he was, his delivery of the promo here gave them the opening to start whatting him. But Jey incorporated it into his promo. It didn't linger for too long. It didn't ruin, it's not like they sabotaged the promo. But as soon as I heard the stupid what chants, I just rolled my fucking eye. I mean, of all the segments, right, to be doing that in. But he handled it well. He said, look, if Jimmy is sad, he's sad. If Jimmy is mad, he's mad. If Jimmy is hurt, then Jey is hurt. He said he respected everyone in his family. He respects all of his elders. But Roman Reigns would get all of his disrespect. And he would spank his younger brother Solo just like he did last week. He addressed Paul Heyman and said that he had been puppeteering his family for 40 years. And it ends now. And he called himself the real head of the table, and his name is Main Event Jey Uso. Eric says, everything? They do everything? Well, not everything. They do most things together. They don't do everything together. You know, that reminds me of an old, oh gosh, what was the Poffo promotion, ICW? Macho Man's father. And Savage and Bob Orton were a team in ICW. And there's this old promo. And Savage was just, I mean, these were like the early Randy Savage promos, right? He sounds all coked out in these promos. But there's one in particular, I'm sure it's on YouTube, where he's talking about how he and Bob Orton, man, they do it's like the Usos here. They do everything together. We ride together. We train together. And then he goes, and then he stopped himself and he started laughing, like giggling awkwardly. It's just a weird promo. So you could insert your own thoughts there about what Randy Savage and Bob Orton were doing together. I don't necessarily want to know. But Paul Heyman and Solo Sikoa walked out to interrupt Jey. And Heyman told Jey that Solo was there to keep the peace. They came down to the ring, and he said that next week Jey and Roman are going to go face-to-face, and they're going to discuss the rules of engagement. We still haven't gotten official confirmation of the SummerSlam match, right? The challenge has not yet been accepted. That may be coming next week. But Heyman said it'll be a discussion about the rules of engagement next week. Tonight, though, they just wanted to have a chat. Heyman said Jey is sounding more and more like a tribal chief every single day. He said what happened to Jimmy is all Jey's fault. And Heyman turned to the camera to talk to Jimmy. Talk to Jimmy, I guess, from his hospital bed. And he screamed, "Jimmy, it's me. It's your favorite Juso." I fucking laughed. I did laugh at that. I did laugh at Heyman calling himself a Juso. I would say that could be a t-shirt too, but they'd probably piss off too many people. He goes, "Do you know why you caught that beating? It's all because of your brother Jey." And he turned back to Jey and he told him, "Your father will never forgive you. Your mother will never forgive you." I'm surprised that we haven't already seen Rikishi in this storyline. And with the mention of that here, maybe it's coming. You know, maybe it's... I did mention something a few weeks ago about an idea that I pitched about SummerSlam. And maybe Jey would have his father in his corner, which actually might make more sense now if Jimmy is not around to watch his back. Maybe Rikishi, right? The mention of the father here, maybe Rikishi shows up. Makes a little cameo. He can be there to counteract Paul Heyman. I'm sure Heyman would take a bump for Rikishi. Heyman used to manage Rikishi when he was part of the Samoan SWAT team many years ago. There's a history there. But he said, your father will never forgive you. Your mother will never forgive you. He said, Roman Reigns will never forgive you. I will never forgive you. Solo Sikoa then took the microphone from him. And he walked right up to his brother and he told Jey, what happened to Jimmy, that's on you. He says, but me, I'll never forgive you either. And we had a stare down between the two brothers. Jey took the first shot. They slugged it out until Jey knocked Solo out of the ring. That left the wise man all by himself in the ring with Jey Uso. And now the crowd is starting to rise. They want Jey to put his hands on Paul Heyman. He took too long, though. Solo attacked him from behind. And Heyman managed to escape to the outside. Rikishi stink faces Heyman? Could be. Could be. You know, especially if SummerSlam is going to end with Jey Uso failing to win the championship, they could send the crowd home happy. If Rikishi is there by doing that very thing, they actually could do that. I could see Rikishi giving Paul Heyman a stink face. So at least people have something to cheer for when that show is over.
It's the amazing Gunther. Jerry Lawler loves Gunther the Magnificent. All hail Gunther.
Hey, Down Bad dropping a $50 Gunther bomb. Solomonster, you're the man. EO is absolutely cashing in at SummerSlam. So saith Down Bad. Thank you for the super chat, brother. Very kind of you. $50 on a Friday night. That's beer money right there. So as I said, Heyman got out of Dodge. Jey stuffed a Samoan spike attempt, and he double-legged Solo down to the mat. Heyman then slid a chair into the ring. And he got back inside, but when he stood up, he immediately ate a super kick from Jey Uso, and the crowd popped huge, as you would expect. Jey then hit a dive to the floor onto Solo to take him out, and then he got back in the ring. And as Heyman recovered, it's not like Heyman was knocked out or anything. As Heyman was on the mat, he recovered, he looked over, he saw Jey was back in the ring, and he saw the chair laying in the middle of the ring. And again, the crowd is starting to rise because the crowd wants Jey to pick up that chair and wail away on this guy. Wail away on the Walrus, just like he did to Solo Sikoa at the end of the show last week. Jey picked up the chair. Solo got back in the ring. He took a shot to the gut, and then he took a chair shot to the back. And that allowed Heyman to roll out of the ring to safety. So I was going to say he lives to fight another day, but Heyman don't fight. This was a hot segment that served one key purpose, which was to solidify a future match between Jey Uso and Solo Sikoa. When that match is going to take place, I don't know, but to me, it feeds into the predictable, I would say, outcome of predictable as I see the outcome of the match at SummerSlam between Roman and Jey. The idea that Jey is going to win the championship at SummerSlam, and maybe then he and Solo will headline a pay-per-view for the title. Is it possible? Sure, it's possible. Do I see that happening? No, I don't. So I think it just makes the outcome of the SummerSlam match that much more obvious, with them setting this match up for, later on down the road. Keep in mind, Solo Sikoa, he cost Drew McIntyre the title at Clash at the Castle. He cost Cody Rhodes the title at WrestleMania. And I think he'll do the same for Jey Uso. Why wouldn't he do the same for Jey Uso at SummerSlam? The other thing they did here is they gave the crowd the super kick to Heyman, which got the expected huge reaction. You saw the penguin go down, so that got a nice pop. But like I said, Jey Uso stood tall at the end of this segment, and he really did. He felt like main event Jey Uso. I don't feel any differently about the outcome of the SummerSlam match. But it is amazing to look back on this now. We're almost 3 years in from when this all started. And the transformation, the physical transformation, but just the character transformation. And the transformation of Jey Uso to just one half of a tag team to what he is today. And it helps that he's part of the family that's being pushed right at the top of the card. And Roman is his cousin and all that. But Jey's put the work in, man, and he's done great stuff. And to see that transformation over the last 3 years has been pretty incredible. And people buy into it. That's the thing. People buy into him in that spot. He doesn't look out of place. He doesn't look uncomfortable in the ring. He doesn't belong. They've accepted him in that role. Will they accept him beyond this bloodline angle? So when Jey Uso is completely divorced from all of this bloodline stuff and he kind of eventually moves on to do his own thing, would they still accept him? I don't know. I mean, he'll just end up back in the team with his brother. But right now, they've accepted him with open arms. Now, up next, we had Austin Theory, who was down to the ring to provide commentary for our first of 2 United States Championship Invitational 4-way matches. Again, the first one was tonight. The next one will be taking place on SmackDown next week. Man, it is so fucking hot outside. And we have storms outside. I don't know if you could hear it's thunder outside. I'm hoping the power doesn't go out. I am really hoping the power doesn't go out. Give me. I gotta check the window here. Make sure everything is all sealed up here. Give me a second. Give me a second, guys. All right. There we go. Everything all sealed up. Hopefully the power stays on. It's what happens when it's like 90 degrees outside. You end up getting these loud bolts of thunder and lightning and all types of shit. We don't even have it as bad as people in some other states do. I mean, the weather has been absolutely just insane. But anyway, Austin Theory down to the ring to do commentary for the first four-way match. This week it was AJ Styles, Santos Escobar, Grayson Waller, and Butch. Now the winner tonight advances to the finals in 2 weeks, as does the winner of next week's four-way, which I'm going to be talking about. Grayson Waller, very interesting here. Grayson Waller has wrestled a grand total of 1 match here on the main roster, and yet here he was tonight in contention for the United States Championship. So yet another positive sign for him. This was really good. This was the match of the night. It's not saying much because, you know, if you look at what we had on the show, there were some short matches. Even the main event, it was more to set up for an angle at the finish, and, you know, they didn't really have the chance to go out there and put on the best possible match that they could, you know, with Bianca and Asuka, like the one they had at WrestleMania. So not a lot of competition, I would say, but this was easily the best thing, the best match on the entire show. Really good stuff. Escobar pulled off a sunset flip triple power bomb. This was the highlight of the match. Off the top rope and dumped everybody down. Escobar then hit knees in the corner on everybody. He went from corner to corner, delivering the knees after they all got back to their feet. And then he hit a phantom driver on Grayson Waller for a near fall before the pin attempt got broken up. Now later on in the match, AJ had Butch set up for the Styles Clash when all of a sudden, on screen, we saw Luke Gallows backstage, and he was down on the ground like he had been beaten up. And then the camera panned up and we saw Karrion Kross with Carl Anderson locked in the cross jacket sleeper hold. And I think Scarlett was just kind of laying off to the side on top of a bunch of equipment boxes, equipment cases, just watching all this. But he put Carl Anderson out with the cross jacket. So, of course, this distracted AJ, who's watching all of this. And he tells AJ that it's not over between them. He's yelling at him. It's not over between them. So, like an idiot, AJ Styles leaves the match to head to the back. He leaves this match and a possible shot at the United States Championship to go to the back to save his friends. Instead of just hitting the Styles Clash and getting the pin and then running to the back, which if he had gotten the pin, it would have taken 3 seconds, he surrenders that and he goes to leave like a moron. Okay, so now AJ is out of the picture. Grayson Waller then hits his rolling somersault stunner from the outside through the ropes, hits Butch in the ring. He drops him with it. But before Waller can get up to go make the cover, Santos Escobar is already coming off the top rope with a huge splash, and he pins Grayson Waller to win the four-way match and move on to the finals in 2 weeks. Like I said, a very good match, the match of the night, but a surprising finish. I thought it was surprising. A surprising finish. You know, they did a lot in this match to shine up Waller. In particular, I thought he looked, very good. He was very active in this match, and that plus the fact that he already took the loss in his debut last week. Not a big deal because again, it was against Edge at Madison Square Garden. It was still a big night for him, but still, he lost in his debut last week. So I figured, okay, he's going to get the win here. They're going to put some shine on him. He's going to get the win here, and then he'll lose in the finals in 2 weeks. But then he lost. Now, I'm not saying it's a death sentence for him. It's just weird because it just felt like this was set up for him to at least go to the finals and then fall there. I didn't expect him to go to SummerSlam heel against heel and wrestle Austin Theory. That wasn't going to happen. But I just thought that was very strange. In particular, very strange if we are going to see LA Knight go to the finals. Because then it's weird for me to sit here and say that would be, or that is going to be babyface against babyface, because technically LA Knight he's not turned, right? There's been no babyface turn for LA Knight. It's the fans who have just gotten behind this guy in a big way and treat him like a babyface when he comes out. And you know what? Let's just skip ahead a couple of segments and just talk about this. May as well talk about this now. With respect to next week's 4-way, later on, we got a remote video, I guess from home, filmed by Rey Mysterio, who was talking about entering the tournament for the U.S. title shot. So he's in the 4-way next week. Then we got similar promos from Backstage. We got one from Cameron Grimes, who is still alive, by the way. He was supposed to wrestle Baron Corbin all those weeks ago to continue their feud until certain someone canceled their match and blew up the show that night. We haven't seen Cameron Grimes since. I was starting to worry that maybe he was going to get demoted back down to NXT, but he's in the 4-way match next week. Sheamus is also in the 4-way next week. And then they saved the best for last. And they actually gave LA Knight, who is also in the 4-way next week, a live entrance. He was the only one to get a live entrance in front of the crowd, and why wouldn't he? Because, of course, he got the expected huge reaction when he came out. Yet again, just to prove that it wasn't just a fluke in London or a fluke at Madison Square Garden when he came out in the dark segment last week. By the way, that video of him beating up Death Row last week, 1.3 million views. Second only to the Bloodline. So, of course, he was going to get an entrance here on this show. And the building, they went wild for LA Knight. So he stood on stage. He soaked it all in before he started talking. Crowd was chanting his name. He said, all of a sudden, LA Knight is everywhere. He said that he's the best decision that WWE ever made. But the worst decision it made was to make a U.S. title invitational. He said that he's coming for that championship. He said one way or another, they are going to call him champ someday. And he threw it to the crowd to chant his name. And they all chanted L.A. Knight. And they said, yeah. And everybody was on their feet for this guy. You know, he calls himself a megastar. He's been calling himself that since his days at least in NXT. And he's actually being treated like one. When they hit his music and he comes out, he's treated like a megastar by these fans. So now to go back to what I was talking about before. We have Santos Escobar, babyface, right, from the LWO. He's in the finals of this tournament in 2 weeks. I look at the match next week. Sheamus, who already wrestled Austin Theory, even though he got fucked out of a win, he already wrestled Austin Theory. We don't need to see Sheamus with the United States Championship. I'd like to see Sheamus with the Intercontinental Championship at some point, but that's on the other show. They already had the chance to do that. The timing didn't line up. At some point, it'll happen. He should not win the U.S. title. Sheamus does not need to be in that match at SummerSlam. Let's say if it actually does happen at SummerSlam. So take him out of the equation. Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio against Austin Theory. I mean, I'm not exactly clamoring for that match. Cameron Grimes, give me a break. You think Cameron Grimes is going to go all the way? Or they're going to do Cameron Grimes against fucking Santos Escobar in the finals of this thing? To me, I look at this, there are the two likeliest possibilities. Rey Mysterio is one. Rey Mysterio could very well win the entire thing. Or when I say win the entire thing, go to the finals at least. Because then we get Rey Mysterio against Santos Escobar. Mysterio and Escobar is a match that I was asking about a long time ago, when Escobar was still a heel with Legado del Fantasma. So, I wouldn't mind seeing Mysterio and Santos Escobar. It would be an excellent match. If it ends up being Rey Mysterio and Santos Escobar, I think Escobar goes over. I think Escobar ends up being the one to challenge for the U.S. title. Or it'll be LA Knight. And really, LA Knight should be the only decision here. LA Knight, if LA Knight goes into that 4-way next week and loses, it would be the biggest boneheaded decision that they could possibly make. clearly cognizant and aware of the reactions that this man has been getting and how his shirt's been selling, and people are going crazy for LA Knight. So at the very least, winning the four-way and going to the finals is a must. A must. But then we get LA Knight and Santos Escobar in the finals, and even if you look at LA Knight and say, well, he's still a heel. He's not a babyface, right? But he's going to get a babyface reaction. And Santos Escobar is going to get booed. So it's just weird if that's the match we ultimately get. That's why I think there's a very good chance Rey Mysterio is going to go to the finals. But to me, it would just be a completely boneheaded move to not send LA Knight to that championship match with Austin Theory. That should be the match. And yes, it should take place at SummerSlam. If the Intercontinental title is good enough to get on the card at SummerSlam in front of 45,000 people, then why not the U.S. title? You can't treat one title one way and treat the other title another way. You should treat them on equal footing, even though they're not really at the moment on equal footing, because Gunther is the Intercontinental Champion, and he's a hell of a lot better than Austin Theory has been as the United States Champion. He's done fuck all as the U.S. Champion. But both titles should be represented on that show. And the only choice should be LA Knight. So we'll find out. We'll find out next week who's going to the finals to face Escobar. Now, backstage, in the parking lot area, the Street Profits were outside when a limousine pulled up. And who should pop out of the limousine to greet the Street Profits? It's Bobby Lashley. We have not seen Bobby Lashley in many, many weeks. He's not hurt. He's just been out of the rotation. He got out of the limousine, he greeted the Street Profits, and he asked them if they were ready to talk. They said they were, and he invited them inside the limo. We don't know what they discussed. We were not privy to that conversation. But a very interesting development here. We might be getting a new Hurt Business after all, or whatever they call them. We might be getting a new faction, right? They have a lot of factions, a lot of trios right now in this company. We might be getting a reformation in some form or fashion of the Hurt Business, and I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I think that's great. Frankly, the Street Profits have been very stale. Very stale. And I'm a little surprised that they haven't really pushed Montez Ford more as a single. Even if they don't split the Street Profits up yet, because they put him in the Elimination Chamber match back in February, and I thought he shined. He did great. It kind of looked at the beginning of the year like Triple H was starting to put him in positions where he was more focused on in a singles capacity. And then in the last few months since WrestleMania, there's been none of that. Absolutely none of that. So that was surprising to me. But the Street Profits they need something. They're not going to be the tag team champions right now, so what do you do with them? If you're not going to turn them, what do you do with them? Well, forming some kind of an alliance or a new Hurt Business with Bobby Lashley and maybe one other person. Well, I mean, that would be something. I'd be all for that, Bobby having a new group behind him. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse here because we've been burned by this before. Right? There was a period of time earlier this year where it looked like we might be getting a reunion or a new Hurt Business, and we didn't get it. So who the hell knows, right? With the decisions that are made sometimes and things getting cut from show, I mean, who the hell knows, right? We can have an idea this week, next week it gets cut. But this was very encouraging. I'm very interested to see where this goes. I don't know where that leaves Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander. I don't know how MVP and or Omos might factor into that. But I am intrigued. And then in the main event, we had Bianca Belair making her way to the ring for her WWE Women's Championship match, taking on Asuka. And they accidentally played Rhea Ripley's Titantron for a few seconds when Bianca, for about 5 seconds, when Bianca first came out and said, "This is my brutality," on the giant Tron. But then they got it fixed. Boy, Rhea is everywhere. Rhea Ripley is everywhere. She's on Raw. She's on NXT. And now she's on SmackDown. Not that I'm complaining. But this woman is everywhere. So if you thought we were getting a clean finish here, you must be new to this wrestling thing. We did not get a clean finish to this match. Bayley and Io, they were shown almost from the beginning of the match, walking through the crowd, and Bayley was waving a ticket around in her hand, and her and Io had the Money in the Bank briefcase, and they came down to ringside by the front row area. A few minutes later, there's a commotion in the crowd, and we cut over and we see Charlotte Flair is coming through the crowd, and Charlotte Flair has a ticket in her hand as well. And I was just thinking, where are they getting all of these tickets from? For a product for a show that's been selling out, and for a product that is supposed to be so white hot, boy, they sure do have a lot of tickets available. Where are all these tickets coming from? So after the final commercial break, both women were battling on the ropes. Bianca backflipped away to avoid a strike. Asuka followed up with a shotgun dropkick. Asuka then landed a knee strike. She pulled Bianca down for a submission hold. Bianca, though, powered Asuka up and landed a spine buster for a near fall. She attempted another backflip moonsault, but Asuka caught her in the Asuka lock. Bianca then rolled through. A short time later, they ended up on the floor. Bianca had Asuka on her shoulders for the KOD, and she dumped her on top of the announce desk. Bayley and Io at this point, and Charlotte, they all got involved. They all hopped the barricade. Charlotte took out Bayley, and Io ran Charlotte into the ring post. Charlotte then recovered, and she went to go spear Io. Io moved out of the way, though, and Charlotte inadvertently speared Bianca Belair for the disqualification. That gave Asuka the disqualification. I guess it would have given Bianca the disqualification win. But a disqualification does not win you a championship in WWE. So the referee called for the bell. Sky then hit Charlotte in the head with her Money in the Bank briefcase, so down goes Charlotte. And Bayley and Io, all of a sudden, they're thinking about cashing in the briefcase. Asuka, though, as they're getting ready to officially cash in this briefcase, Bayley climbs up on the apron. She's got the briefcase. She's about to hand it in. And Asuka spits the mist in her face and blinds Bayley. And Asuka then took her title and she fled up the ramp to safety. And the show ended with all of the other women looking very frustrated as Asuka smiled. So it was a predictable ending to a decent match. This was half of what these two are capable of. We saw what they're capable of at WrestleMania. If you were expecting some great match, you didn't get it. The ending was overbooked to all hell. But it was overbooked to all hell because it wasn't about the match. The goal tonight was not to deliver a 15-minute 4-star women's match in the main event of SmackDown. The goal tonight was to further the story and get us closer, one step closer to that triple threat match at SummerSlam. It will be a triple threat. It will be Asuka defending her title against Bianca and Charlotte. There's not a doubt in my mind. And the only question then is, will Io Sky cash in? I believe she will. You can only have so many failed cash-ins before it gets old. She's already had one or two of them. SummerSlam, I see Asuka, outlasting the two of them, retaining her championship, and that will be the opportunity for Io to go ahead and cash in. Now, whether she's successful or not, we don't know. I think she probably will be. But that's how I see things playing out. So, again, overall, the Jey Uso segment was very good. The four-way, first of two four-ways for the U.S. title shot, very good. And that's about it. That's about it. Everything else on the show was just there. Can't really say anything overly positive about anything else on this show. Watch the Jey Uso stuff, watch the four-way, and you've watched everything that you need to watch. Now, next week, next Friday, they have the FIFA Women's World Cup coverage on Fox. So there will be no SmackDown on Fox. Instead, SmackDown will be airing on FS1. And Roman Reigns will be back on the show to have his little face-to-face confrontation with Jey Uso as they discuss their rules of engagement. And we'll have the four-way with Rey Mysterio, Sheamus, Cameron Grimes, and the man who should be your winner, LA Knight. So that's coming up next Friday. Here's a Twitter poll. 67% thumbs up for SmackDown tonight. 32% thumbs down. There's Dexter Loomis. Whatever happened to Dexter Loomis? Now I'm looking at Dexter Lumis in this image here, and it just reminded me, where the hell did Dexter Lumis go? I guess he's been waiting for Johnny Gargano to come back. Johnny Gargano is cleared, by the way. He is medically cleared, so we should be seeing Gargano back on TV any week now. But there you go. Positive score for the show tonight. 67 up, 32 down. You guys know what to do. At Solomonster is the place to go ahead and vote. That is the place to go. Let's take a look at the Super Chats and what you guys are talking about. And your questions and comments. Always love hearing from you guys. By the way, the goal tonight for Be the Booker was 350. And we are currently at 356 likes. So thank you for getting us to our goal. I set a modest goal. I'd like to see at least 400. You could do that for me, right? You could do 400. Hey, Boots, with the $5 Super Chat. It may be the booze talking. It probably is. But with CM Punk, Purple Bucket Hat, and the Van Wick on your Mount Rushmore of nouns that you hate, who takes the 4th spot? The what chant? There's your Mount Rushmore. Dr. Scorpio had a good few positive days despite terrible lack of sleep. Got a new bike. Chilled with my friend. Feels nice to not be distracted with other things. Well, I'm very happy for you. Now, you say you got a new bike. You talking about a bike? Or you talking about a motorcycle? Because I could just picture Dr. Scorpio, man, revving that engine, cruising down the highway, right, 100 miles an hour on his Harley Davidson. Now he'll ride in and tell me, nah, it was just a Huffy. It was a Huffy bike. Groovy Goose, what do you think is the ceiling in terms of Grayson Waller's potential? Do you see him becoming a world champion one day? I could see Grayson Waller as a world heavyweight champion one day. Yeah, I could see that. DEH Sires, tonight's SmackDown felt like earlier Triple H shows. Nah, I mean, again, some of the earlier Triple H shows were better than this. Again, there were really just 2 segments on this show that I thought were really good. Everything else was just, it wasn't bad, but it was just kind of there. DEH also says the first Theory and LA Knight promo is going to feel like that Cena and Reigns promo from 2017. WWE could benefit with Cena and The Rock actors strike. Well, I said, keep your eye out for The Rock. Would not at all shock me to see him make an appearance at SummerSlam. It would be weird, though, for him to be at SummerSlam, though, and not have any involvement at all in the Bloodline stuff, considering he is literally part of that Bloodline. But I am sure if they just had him for a quick segment, they'll be happy to take him for whatever he's willing to do. And like you said, Cena also, all of a sudden Cena could be available. Rob G, which ended the Attitude Era, the Austin turn or the WCW sale? Austin turn at WrestleMania 17. The Mount Vernon Kid, Christopher Bennett, 2 questions. Once again, Asuka holds the belt and is the third wheel in the situation. Shaking my head. Do you feel the same? Do you think the Shotzi feud with Bayley will help her? Right, 2 questions. So the first question, yeah, I mentioned the same thing at the beginning. She did feel like the third wheel, but again, I think it might be by design because she's probably going to win at SummerSlam. And it's not what I would do. I'm not saying that they're right for doing it, but I think that's probably, the idea behind portraying her in that way. Kind of put all the focus on Charlotte and Bianca, and everyone's thinking, oh, which one is it going to be? And then in the end, Asuka keeps her title. But as far as the Shotzi feud with Bayley, I don't see how it could hurt. Shotzi wasn't doing anything on TV. Shotzi wasn't doing a damn thing. So if Shotzi is going to feud with anybody, it's better than doing nothing. So could it benefit her? Yes, it could benefit her. Is it going to? I don't know. Probably not. But could it benefit her? Yeah. DEH says, out of Miz, Corbin, and Ziggler, who had more potential to be a bigger star but were ruined by terrible booking and terrible gimmicks? Ziggler. Ziggler had the most potential to be bigger than he was out of those 3. Yeah, you could say that about Miz. Miz is a weird one though. I wouldn't say that Miz was ruined by bad booking. I mean, what do you think Miz would have done otherwise? Like, if anything, Miz has been. Miz is always booked in something. There's people on that roster who would kill to have the kind of exposure on television that Miz has had for so many years, and he's been there for so long. Miz is always involved in something. Usually it's comedy stuff. So maybe the booking isn't always great, but I mean, Miz is very fortunate to be in the position that he's in. Miz has gotten more out of his run than the other two combined. So I don't cry for the Miz. Plus, he gets to go home to Maurice. So, come on. Have I seen Braun against Ilya yet? Braun's ceiling is high. I have not. I've not seen it. Corey Everett, too sweet me, Solomonster. Love you, brother. Love you too, Corey. Thank you. Thank you, brother. Brumakian Productions, thank you for the $2. Rodimus Prime with the 10. Which faction did you hate the most? The Authority, the Ministry of Darkness, or both? Which faction did I hate the most? Probably the Authority. Probably went on a little longer than I would have liked, but then again, it did benefit Daniel Bryan, right? The Daniel Bryan story was really tied into the whole Authority thing. I didn't hate. It's not a matter of me, like, oh, I couldn't stand the Ministry. I wouldn't watch their segments. I just didn't care for it. I just wasn't really a fan of it. But the Authority and the stuff with like Big Show and Kane, to me, after a while, it just got annoying. Dr. Scorpio. The Rock acknowledges everyone but Roman. It's true. We have got 0 Point with the $25 Brie from earlier. SmackDown is on FS1 next week. Stoked to see LA Knight. Next week, make sure to tune into FS1 to hopefully see LA Knight win the Fatal 4-Way. Not getting my hopes up. By the way, this will be on FS1, not Fox. So in case you didn't know, I don't think 0 Point made that clear enough. That SmackDown is going to be on FS1 next week. Thank you, 0 Point. 0.216. I think that's the rating that Impact got this past week. MLK 010. Who in WWE should adopt the pounce as a move? In WWE, I was going to say, because in AEW, we already have like Willow Nightingale. Willow Nightingale sometimes uses the pounce in her matches. Who should use the pounce in WWE? I don't know. Who should use the pounce in WWE? It's got to be somebody who has the physical stature for it. Gunther doesn't need it. He doesn't need to pounce anybody. He'll just chop, right? So he doesn't need the pounce. Bronson Reed. I think Bronson Reed can pounce people halfway across the ring, don't you? Braun Breaker. I can see Braun Breaker. I still feel like though, if you're gonna pounce somebody, though, you should have a little bit of size to you, though. Bronson Reed has just the right size, but Braun Breaker would work too. We've got Morton with the 490. Here's Perk Angle. He heard me mention TNA, so he had to pop up. What's going on, Perk? Morton says Bianca and Charlotte in those full bodysuits makes me think of Giant Gonzalez. He was 30 years before his time. More LA Knight, less Bloodline, please. Down Bad. Again, thank you for that 50. He is the king of the night here. The king of the hill so far. Jeremy Thunderstrikes. Red Pill. Okada signs with House of Glory for a year. Blue Pill. Minoru Suzuki destroys Charles Mason. Which one are you taking? Oh, I'm taking Murder Grandpa. I would love to make that announcement. Actually, that gives me a great idea. But let's move on. Brumakian Productions, Cream of the Crop. That's right, the Macho Man. Cream of the crop. DEH Sires, counting from Madison Square Garden last week to this coming Monday's Raw, WWE selling over 48,000 tickets in 4 shows is crazy. The impact of Bloodline and Triple H tabling over. Or taking over. But I'm just reading it here. It says tabling over. EJ Slemp, tonight I went to Singo, which is bingo for songs. they call it Singo, huh? Not Shingo? He went to Singo, which is bingo for songs at a local bar, and my card had both Carry On Wayward Son and Cult of Personality. I laughed so hard. Could be a sign. Could be a sign that maybe they need to work together. Justin G had to rebrand. People got my last name wrong. Thanks, Solo. You're very welcome. Thank you for the super chat. DEH says, thoughts on Bray and Howdy joining Cross against the OC. I don't have any interest in that. I got no interest in that. Zachariah Sitchin, whose U.S. title reign was the worst? Dolph Ziggler when he just gave up the belt after a week? Or Austin Theory's current reign? I have no memory of that. Dolph Ziggler just gave up the U.S. belt after a week. When was this? I don't remember this at all. James Auburn, problem. You know, Zachariah again saying, don't forget about me. Thank you, Zachariah. I'll get to you in a second here. James Auburn, though, first says, problem. If LA Knight wins the U.S. title, he would be the only babyface for Damian Priest to cash in on. Priest is not ready for Roman, and Gunther is a heel. Yes, but Damian Priest has a year to cash in his Money in the Bank, and Gunther is going to drop that title not long after he breaks the Honky Tonk Man's record. So, you know, people sometimes, I think, they're in such a rush to, you know, kind of fantasy book the briefcase off of somebody and have them cash in. But he doesn't have to cash in for a while. He can hold on to it for a few months or for a lot longer than a few months. But I think if he's going to attempt to cash in, there's a pretty good chance it may happen at SummerSlam. It's probably going to be Rollins and Balor Part 2. You know Priest is going to be involved in some way. Scott Woodford, I'm here to support you. I'm going to watch SmackDown after this. Scott, thank you very much. Scott was the winner of our little FOCO bobblehead giveaway. He's getting a Stone Cold Rock beer truck bobble. This thing is fucking awesome. And another reason why you should be following me on Twitter. We do those giveaways occasionally. You can win a free. It's not even, honestly, it's not even, it doesn't do it justice to call these things bobbleheads. Like, I have a couple of them myself. I got a Bret Hart one. It's like a big head bobble. I mean, this thing, it's heavy. Like, you could just, not that I'm advocating this, but you could, like, bash someone's brains in with this thing. It's gigantic. It's just as far as its weight. So I can only imagine the beer truck one. But Scott, thank you, brother. James Auburn, never mind. I forgot about Rollins. Is that the likeliest possibility? Yeah, I think I just answered your question for you. I think that is the more likely possibility. Zizou, is Ziggler a future Hall of Famer? Of course. Of course. All these guys are. Miz, Ziggler. Trying to think of other mid-card talents that have been around for a while. Like all the members of New Day. All the members of New Day will probably go in individually and go in as a trio at some point. Everybody who is getting television time right now on a consistent basis or has on WWE television in the last decade plus is going to go into the Hall of Fame. So it's at this point, honestly, it's kind of a silly question for people to like be wondering, is so-and-so going to go into the Hall of Fame? They're all going into the Hall of Fame. But Ziggler, if you look at his body of work in WWE, he'd be going into the Hall of Fame anyway. World Heavyweight Champion, U.S. Champion, Intercontinental Champion, Tag Team Champion, Money in the Bank. Honestly, one of the best Money in the Bank cash-ins of all time. Has worked for the company for years and years. Has a great body of work as far as the quality of his matches. There's really no reason for him not to be in the Hall. EJ says Woods will not go in individually. I would not be so sure of that. Xavier Woods, as much I think for the stuff that he has done outside the ring and with his up, up, down, down channel and the people he on the roster that he has brought into that, the opportunities that he has created for a lot of other talents with the kind of extracurricular stuff that he does. I think for that, even just as much as anything he's done in the ring, he will definitely get consideration for the Hall of Fame. First name John wants to know, what is my favorite sandwich? It is, well, when I would get Subway sandwiches, it usually is the turkey and bacon flatbread. So I'll go my turkey bacon flatbread sub from Subway. Groovy Goose, do I listen to Michael K often? What are your thoughts? I do not. I do not. Do not want my ears to bleed. Do not listen to Michael K. Super Pony says, I need KO against Ezekiel in the main event of WrestleMania for the World title. I'm glad you're not booking WrestleMania. Thank you, Super Pony. You will have a pony before you ever see that in the WrestleMania main event. Zachariah Sitchin with the 1999. Long-term storytelling paid off for the Bloodline, but not so much for Bray. What went wrong for Bray? And should Solo be the one to feud with Roman after Jey, or should he turn on Roman at WrestleMania 40? I think the Solo turn, the Solo story, I think they'll probably wait a little bit longer on that. I could see that not happening until WrestleMania next year. What went wrong with Bray? You know, obviously he's ill right now. We still don't know what the nature of the supposed illness is. WWE hasn't said a word about it. It's all just rumor at this point. It's not a physical injury. Plenty of pictures of him around. He looks fine. Outwardly, physically looks fine. So I don't know what's going on with him. I have no idea. That's the biggest thing that went wrong for Bray. It's why he hasn't been on television in months. You want to say what went wrong with Bray? We could take it back to the very beginning and say the booking. The booking, going all the way back to 2014, is what went wrong with Bray Wyatt. But this latest run, it's just weird. You know, they bring him back. People are very excited to see him back, right? The reactions that he was getting. And then he doesn't wrestle a match for 4 months. And even then, it's not, you know, a traditional match. It's some gimmick match with all kinds of bells and whistles and stuff. And then he disappears. And there's been no explanation for why or anything like that. They're still doing Uncle Howdy stuff on television, and then that just ends. So when and if he finally comes back, yeah, they basically have to start all over. It'll be another opportunity to just start over and start fresh. But even before he fell ill, it was a very weird thing to bring him back and then not actually put him in the ring and have any sort of action with him for so long. I'm not saying he has to wrestle every single week. I get it if they want to keep him as some kind of special attraction, but it's just fucking ridiculous. So unless he was dealing with an injury at the time, and he did have that knee brace on, if there was some physical reason why he could not wrestle until the Royal Rumble, I don't know. Because again, they don't tell us anything. Everything is a big fucking secret. I don't know. All I'm left with as an outside observer is to watch as a fan on television and say, this is fucking dumb. You got a better explanation for it? Then tell us. But it was pretty fucking dumb to bring this guy back and then do nothing with him for 4 months and keep doing versions of the same exact segment in promo over and over and over again. That's when I just kind of mentally checked out and I got tired of it. I said, this is bullshit. What the fuck is this? So, I don't know what's going on with Bray Wyatt. I think Bray's done. It just feels to me like Bray's done. He'll come back maybe, and then he'll be out again for some reason. I don't know. It just feels to me like Bray's done. Although don't let you know who hear that I said that. They'll have a meltdown. Justin says, buy or sell Climax, Michigan, and Balzac, Alberta. What? Climax, Michigan? Michigan, Alberta? Buy, oh my god. I guess I'll buy on Climax. I'll let you have Balzac. I'll take the Climax. Dr. Scorpio. Dolph gave up the title and quit, and then returned at the 2018 Royal Rumble 2 weeks later as the number 30. So, yes, I do remember that. I do remember. That was pretty stupid. That was very stupid. The Rock versus Sting. Even Baron Corbin is going into the WWE Hall of Fame? Probably, yeah. Yeah, probably. EJ Slem says Draws should get the Warrior Award next year. Uffman Entertainment. Back in the day, I would go to WWF New York to buy shirts. They used to be $20 each, and I would walk out with 3 or 4 of them every visit. Now one shirt is $50. It's crazy. I mean, the way that the prices have swelled on those shirts. And I'll tell you what, I hear a lot of complaints about that Fanatics company. The quality of the merch that they put out. I don't think I've gotten a lot of merch from them, so I can't really say, but I do. I read a lot of bad things about Fanatics. But yeah, WWF New York was a lot of fun. It didn't last very long, but I was there a few times, and I always had fun there. But again, property in the middle of Times Square like that is very expensive. So unless you're doing gangbuster business there, it just wasn't going to work. It was not going to work out as a long-term investment. But for the time it lasted, I had fun there. Rufus Pancake Patterson. Thought Heyman said Juso. Juventud. Oh, no, he said Juso. He said Juso, not... You're thinking of a different kind of juice. And Super Pony said, better career so far, KO or Sammy? Well, both have headlined WrestleMania. Although KO has done it twice. You know, it's weird. It's hard to say. Because their careers have mirrored each other, and everywhere one has gone, the other has followed. From the Independents, to Ring of Honor, to NXT, to WWE. Their careers mirror each other so perfectly. The one thing that Sammy has not had that at least Owens did for a while, Owens was a Universal Champion. Sami Zayn has never been Universal Champion, he's never been WWE Champion. But they've both been Intercontinental Champion. They're Tag Team Champions right now. They've both been, in the WrestleMania main event. They've wrestled each other. They've teamed together. Who had the better career so far? I think I would go Kevin Owens. Slightly. I would say Kevin Owens. Although the body of work that Sammy put together last year alone with that Bloodline stuff, I mean, that elevated him a lot. But I think overall, better career, I'd have to go KO. I think Kevin Owens gets it. So we are all caught up, it looks like, on your Super Chats. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All of your support is much appreciated. And we did hit our goal tonight for Be the Booker. I thank you for that as well. And so let us go and be the Booker.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Oh,
it
look
is
at this
now
match.
time to be the Booker.
Look at this legendary battle between Alicia Fox and Melina. Let's see how many of you remember whose favorite match that is. But it is time to be the Booker. We have some new additions. I mentioned this the other night. We didn't land on any of them. Perhaps we will tonight. I always update Be the Booker every now and then. Let me see those B2B emojis in the chat. And we'll begin here with the men's Be the Booker. I just jinxed myself. Yeah, I probably did. I probably should have kept my mouth shut. Well, let's see. We begin with, oh my God. Well, I don't know. Would you consider this a jinx, considering what I just got done talking about? Bray Wyatt. We land on The Fiend. It is The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, kicking us off here in Be the Booker. Who will Bray Wyatt be stepping into the ring with? It's like I talked it into existence. And we found Bray. We did find Bray. Bray made it back here to Be the Booker before he made it back to WWE. Bray Wyatt gonna go one-on-one with the Ultimate Warrior. The Fiend and the Ultimate Warrior. I'm giving that the bell because I have to see this fucking match. I have to see. You know, I sat through the Ultimate Warrior and Papa Shango when I was a kid. We need to see the Fiend and the Ultimate Warrior. This I gotta see. This is what Be the Booker was made for. How's that for a match? You know, some fantasy warfare. What do you think the Warrior would say when the writer comes over him and says, the Fiend is going over tonight. He's going to no-sell all of your offense. How do you think the Ultimate Warrior would have reacted? Oh, man, now I'm sad we're never going to get to see it. I imagine that will not end well for the Fiend, kind of the way it ended for him when he was in there with Bill Goldberg. All right, now let's go over to the ladies' side. Women's Be the Booker, and we begin. We go from the Fiend to Alexa Bliss. Boy, Bliss Fan is, I don't know if Bliss Fan is still here. I know he was here before, but Bliss Fan has got to be just overjoyed the way that Be the Booker is going so far. Alexa Bliss. Let's see who Alexa Bliss is going to be wrestling. Multi-time women's champion on Raw and SmackDown. Alexa Bliss one-on-one with... Interesting. I would give that the bell. I think that's a bell-worthy match. What do you guys think? Who do you think would go over? Who do you think would go over in this particular match? I don't think we've... is Blissman here? I know he was here. He was here before. I don't know if he's still with us or not. We have so many people. We have so many people who don't even know. You don't know who this is. You don't know who this is. Would somebody let the people in the chat know who this is? It's Allison Kay. Don't you see the pinky? The pinky is up. Allison Kay, right? NWA. A little bit in AEW. Allison Kay and Alexa Bliss. I gave that the bell because I think it has the potential to be a good... No, wait. Shit. There you go. I just wanted to illustrate that. I gave it the bell because I think it could be a good match. Then 85% of the comments in the chat. Who dat? Who dat? What is it? Junkyard Dog back in the Mid-South there? Who dat? Who dat? Who dat beat that dog? Who dat? Come on. All right, tag teams. Here we go. Tag team Be the Booker. We begin with Stone Cold Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels. Stone Cold Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels were tag team champions briefly. They were tag team champions for a few weeks. Stone Cold and Shawn Michaels had a fantastic match on Raw with Owen Hart and the British Bulldog in May of 1997. If you didn't see it, you need to go back and watch it. Or maybe it was April. I think it was May. I think it was May of 97. Austin, Michaels, taking on William Regal and Tajiri. Hey, look, you got Stone Cold and Shawn Michaels on one side, you got William Regal on the other, and you throw Tajiri in there. To me, that's a bell right there. That's a bell. And that means that we just went 3 for 3. I'm giving that another bell. That means we had a clean sweep here in Be the Booker tonight. There you go. How do you like that? A clean sweep. B2B. That's what I like to see. There you go, man. Sweep it. Sweep it. Sweep it. There you go. You love to see it. Hey, Brian H. the Green Boy, dropping a $5 super chat. What's up, Solomonster? I thought SmackDown was pretty good tonight. WWE, please give me Pretty Deadly on my TV every Friday night. So we have the Pretty Deadly fan here, Brian H. the Green Boy. I'm sure you'll be seeing more of the disco ball on SmackDown in the weeks to come. Is Tajiri still wrestling? Says Deputy Dog. I believe he is, yes. Hey, Bobby's World just gifted a channel membership to one lucky recipient, and that lucky recipient is T. Rivera. So Bobby's World, thank you for that. Larry Alexander says, I love Be the Booker. That's why I do it. I leave it in your good hands. All I ask is that you hit the like button. You got a lot of Be the Booker fans here. It gets you thinking, you know? It gets you thinking about these matches that maybe you wouldn't have thought about before. A Moist Kite. Just want to say... cute. Very cute. A Moist Kite, thank you. We know what Moist Kite is in need of, so if you can help Moist Kite, you gotta leave your information here, so they'll get in touch with you if somebody can help you out with that. We had B Money. B Money just renewed their channel membership for 2 months. Hey, B Money, thank you. Thank you, sir. No, you know, El Dandy is not available in Be the Booker. Should I put him in there? You know who I just realized I don't think is in Be the Booker? I don't think LA Knight is in Be the Booker. I have to check on that. We have to make sure he's in there. I don't think that the Megastar is in Be the Booker. We have to correct that. LaShawn has been a channel member for 7 months. He says WWE wasting Saray really sucked for me. She's so talented and was basically never... Oops. Where'd you go there? Was never utilized. Hope she does better in Japan. Love the channel. Yeah, I mean, they were pushing her a little bit for a while. I don't know if it was pandemic related. It was just like something changed somewhere along the way, and all of a sudden we didn't see her, and then she wasn't really pushed. So, yeah, it didn't really work out for her, unfortunately. Bobby's World with another gifted membership to Andrew Claterman. Zizu with the $4.99. Finally watched that China documentary. Do you think if WWE would have tried to mend things, it would have saved her life? It's impossible to know. It's impossible to know. And you can't lay all that at WWE's feet. She got pushed like a huge star. You know, I mean, there's a lot of debate about who was in the wrong as far as how she left the company. It certainly looked like in some respects she was done wrong, but You know, there's probably blame to go around on both sides. And then what she did post WWE, I mean, there were many years that went by between her WWE run and when she passed away. You know, you have to hold her accountable for that as well. There has to be some accountability for that. So would that have been different had she not have left the company? Who's to say? You know, I mean, people fall into certain vices, especially wrestlers. And in the end, it catches up to you at some point. I don't know. I can't answer that question. Nobody can. But it was very sad. You know, the way things ended for her was very sad. Do I ever think Demolition will be put into the Hall of Fame? Yes. After they're dead. Sadly. Unfortunately, I think something will happen to at least one of them, and that's when they'll go into the Hall of Fame, because that's what WWE does. They wait too long with certain people. That's what happened with Randy Savage. That's what happened with Vader. And it's going to happen again more in the future. Did she leave in 01 or 02? I want to say China. I want to say she left in 01. I think her last match or her last pay-per-view match was against Lita. Right? Was it a match with Lita? At Judgment Day or something? Or do I have the opponent wrong? I think that was 2001. I'm pretty sure. All right, so thank you guys for hanging out with me. Again, one more reminder here that the brand new Sound Off Gamer, my first for AEW Fight Forever, is currently up. In case you did not see it, it is almost an hour long, and hilarity ensues. It is a very bloody ordeal. You can also watch Solomonster, not only me trying out the exploding barbed wire death match for the first time, but beginning my road to Elite. For some reason, Jon Moxley, he doesn't like me very much. He's been a gigantic pain in my ass so far on this journey. And I'm thinking maybe he heard the comments I made about him in his blood dissertation on the podcast this past weekend. Maybe he's upset with me. I don't know. But go ahead and check that out. I got some great feedback. Leave comments in the comments section. I know I have to grapple more. Everyone's yelling at me. Do you ever grapple? Do you know how to do anything other than punch and kick? The answer is no. That's why I'm learning. You get to watch me as I learn. I'm like a little baby. I'm taking my first steps. You people would be terrible parents. Let me tell you. The kid barely out of the womb, and you'd be yelling at him. Don't you know how to walk? Patience. Patience. JL, channel member for 7 months. WWE should have an advertised match like the Mountain Dew that they did, but instead it's the noodle pudding match. Big money for Solo. I'd love a noodle pudding match. I'd love to be part of a noodle pudding match. Book me. Justin G. Town puns aside, we thank you. More super chats in the future. You talking about Canadian towns? I've learned a lot about Canadian towns over the past week. Wait, Canada's a lot more fun than I thought. LaShawn C. What's the worst bump that you've ever seen? Not a botch, but a horrible bump that someone willingly took. It's worse when you know that they were expecting it. I mean, would you count the second fall from the top of the cage in the Hell in a Cell? I know, Foley and Undertaker have talked about how it wasn't supposed to happen. Or at least it wasn't supposed to happen the way that it did. So I don't know if you'd call that a botch. I guess it would be a botch. Because that would be the worst. I mean, that would be the worst, and I rewatched it again recently because it's 25-year anniversary and people were talking about it. So you watch that back, and I mean, those were the hard WWE rings from 25 years ago. It's like concrete. And just the thud that his body made when he came crashing down, and then the chair follows and hits him in the face. I mean, it's the worst bump I've ever seen that somebody got up from. It's kind of hard to top that one. There was actually a bad bump that, and again, it wasn't a botch, but Sean Waltman in the early days of the 1-2-3 Kid, like one of the first, it wasn't the first, but I think it was the rematch that he had on Raw with Razor Ramon. I think it was the match where he was wrestling Razor for $10,000 and then he took the bag of money and ran out of the arena. There was a spot in that match where I think he did a cannonball off the top rope to the floor, and he thudded on the floor, and his head smacked the, whatever it was, the pavement or the wood, whatever. That was a sickening bump. I remember that. I remember hearing that. So, unfortunately, there have been some pretty bad ones. I won't mention the Tiger Driver 91 from Forbidden Door, or else Kenny Omega might get angry. He might get mad, because people actually were concerned about him. So, apparently, fuck those people. So, I won't mention that. Dick the Cock Johnson, Willow and Athena on Rampage was absolutely incredible. That's why I can't wait to go back and see it. It's just too bad it was on Rampage. Should have been live in the ring on Dynamite, in front of the biggest possible audience that they could do on their shows. And instead they relegated it to a show that's going to do half the audience, and those two deserve a lot better than that. So I am looking forward to seeing that. Ha! Hulk Hogan getting his neck snapped by Zeus. Yeah, those were brutal, but for a very different reason. I always like that. The neck wringer that Zeus would do in his matches. Does anyone know what the Tiger Driver 91... Here's what I want to know. Why is it the Tiger Driver 91? Neither one of those guys were born in 1991, so it has nothing to do with that. I don't know the origin of the Tiger Driver 91 name. I know there's a bunch of different ones, like... I think there's a Tiger Driver 93 and 98, I think. I don't know the rationale or the meaning. I'm sure there's some kind of meaning behind them. I just don't know what it is. Owen Hart pile driver to Stone Cold. Yeah, I mean, that would be a botch. You know, when you deliver a pile driver, you're not actually supposed to drop the person on their fucking head. So that would technically be a botch. Oh, BlissFan's a little delayed apparently. BlissFan just figured out we had the Fiend and Alexa be the booker. Boy, you're on some kind of delay, BlissFan. That was like 15 minutes ago. You got to fast forward and catch up. I knew you'd be happy though. As soon as I saw Alexa, I said, "My God, Alexa and the Fiend together." BlissFan, this is like BlissFan's birthday. It's amazing. By the way, BlissFan, you would be interested. I mentioned those Foco WWE bobbleheads. They have an Alexa Bliss one, a dark Alexa one that you should go check out. Now it's on pre-order. It's not available yet. It's like $95, but you would enjoy that. Go find that bobblehead. I'm telling you, that's something that would be right up your alley. Yeah, Tyler Bate, I think Tyler Bate was born in 97, but again, Ospreay and Omega, I don't know what the significance of 91 is. So that's the only thing I wasn't sure of. Rufus Pancake Patterson. Looks like you're going to get the final super chat here. Rufus says, "Can you say Rizzo in your Willow voice?" Rizzo. There you go. Rufus Pancake Patterson, because I love that fucking name. I did it for you. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you guys for hanging out with me here on a Friday night. I hope you enjoyed the review. Some of you I know enjoy the reviews more than the actual shows, which makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Fuzzy wuzzy, like Fuzzy Wuzzy Bear, like what Jay White calls Dax Harwood for some disturbing reason. And I'm going to head out. Be well, stay safe, check out Sound Off Gamer, and I will be back with you very soon, live here on YouTube for more Solomonster Sounds Off. Until then, have a good weekend, guys.